As of May 14, 2026, the long-standing silence within the royal family has been dramatically broken. Not by an outside threat, but by the self-inflicted, ego-driven collapse of the current queen consort. What we are witnessing is the unmistakable unseating of Camilla. This is no longer mere tabloid gossip. It is a calculated, strategic, and institutionally sanctioned reduction of her influence. The simmering palace power struggle, long hidden behind Buckingham Palace's heavy velvet curtains, has now burst into public view with devastating consequences for Camilla. The turning point traces back to January 2026, when the Times published a landmark cover story that effectively served as a manifesto for a new royal era. Penned by the influential Kate Mayani, the article carried the explosive headline, "Arise, Queen Kate." Far more than a flattering profile, it represented a public coronation by the media establishment. The piece positioned Catherine, the Princess of Wales, as the true emotional and institutional heart of the Windsor dynasty. It celebrated her grace, steadfast sense of duty during her health challenges, and her natural ability to earn the admiration of a nation that has often remained cool toward Camilla. To the public, Queen Kate represented a refreshing and inevitable vision of the future. Behind palace walls, however, the headline detonated like a bomb. Camilla, whose own path to the throne spanned 2 decades of battling public opinion, reportedly took the narrative as a direct personal attack. Insiders suggest she viewed the article as a coordinated effort by the Middleton family to sideline her while she still occupied the throne. Long-rumored jealousy boiled over into open frostiness. The carefully cultivated charm that Camilla had perfected over decades began to crack under the strain of her insecurity. The breaking point came during the first week of May 2026, at the traditional royal garden party, an occasion meant to honor public service and national unity. Instead, 8,000 guests witnessed Camilla's public unraveling. In what royal fashion observers called an act of aggressive accessorizing, she appeared wearing the Greville tiara and Queen Elizabeth II's most iconic diamond festoon necklace, pieces traditionally reserved for the future Queen Catherine. The message was clear: I am still here, yet the gesture backfired spectacularly. Surrounded by veteran royal correspondents, Camilla discarded the monarchy's sacred never complain, never explain principle. In a sharp, unprovoked jab at the Times headline, she sneered, "The crown is not for those who merely know how to pose on magazine covers. My patience took 20 years to bear fruit, not 20 minutes after a fawning article." The attack was unmistakable. By dismissing Catherine's popularity as mere posing, Camilla had not only targeted her daughter-in-law, she had insulted the public that adores her. The backlash was swift and brutal. By May 10th, a YouGov poll showed Catherine's approval, ratings soaring to a record 78%, while Camilla's plunged to a dismal 29%. The public image that emerged was one of a bitter, petulant consort envious of a younger, more beloved successor. The most decisive reaction, however, came from the king himself. King Charles III, faced with the severe PR crisis triggered by his wife, executed what insiders are calling the Great Power Calibration. Instead of defending Camilla, he moved decisively to elevate the Middleton family, positioning them as the new stabilizing force at court. His notably warm and jovial public interactions with Carol Middleton sent an unmistakable message, a direct rebuke to Camilla's hostility. Camilla has reportedly described Carol as a wolf in sheep's clothing, fearing her growing influence over the future King George. Yet Charles has made his allegiance clear. The Middletons represent the stability his legacy demands. The institutional response has been spearheaded by the Princess Royal, Anne. Known for her no-nonsense approach to duty, Anne has expressed deep disappointment in Camilla's loss of control and her breach of royal decorum. In Anne's view, speaking out and speaking down at the garden party violated one of the monarchy's most fundamental rules. Her stance has given King Charles the moral authority to take the most significant steps of his reign. Today's headlines are no longer simply about a family feud. They signal the legal and diplomatic marginalization of a seated queen. King Charles has begun the formal process of handing over the keys of the kingdom to Catherine, reducing Camilla to a queen in title alone. The long-simmering battle over status and influence has now been decisively settled, not through confrontation, but through a series of calculated royal decrees that have stripped Camilla of any real power. Her duties, responsibilities, and access to the royal heritage have been systematically reassigned to the very woman she once tried so relentlessly to sideline. As of May 14, 2026, the Queen Catherine era has not merely begun, it has been officially inaugurated by the king's own hand, leaving Camilla to survey the wreckage of her two-decade-long ambition. The internal restructuring of the British monarchy shifted into high gear during the second week of May 2026. If the outburst at the Petit Déthieu garden party marked the emotional fracture, then Royal Decree 102 of 2026 represented the legal severance of Queen Camilla's authority. In a move that stunned traditionalists at Buckingham Palace, King Charles III formally transferred the title of Keeper of the Royal Collection to Catherine, the Princess of Wales. This was far more than a warm, symbolic gesture from a father-in-law to a beloved daughter-in-law. It was a strategic masterstroke that handed Catherine one of the most powerful levers within the institution. The royal collection comprises over 1 million priceless artifacts, including some of the world's most renowned diamonds, paintings, and regalia. Historically, oversight of this vast treasury has fallen under the direct influence or shared control of the Queen Consort. By appointing Catherine to this role, the king has given her absolute authority over the physical symbols of the monarchy. Catherine now holds the literal and metaphorical keys to the vault. Every tiara, heirloom necklace, and piece of sovereign jewelry worn by female members of the royal family must now receive approval through Catherine's office. The timing of this decree was a direct response to Camilla's provocative decision to wear the Greville tiara as a tool of intimidation. In doing so, Camilla inadvertently demonstrated to the king that she could no longer be trusted with discretionary control over the crown's heritage. The king's message was unmistakable. The treasures of the past belong to the future of the monarchy, and that future is Catherine. Sources within the Lord Chamberlain's office confirm that Camilla was not, consulted prior to the announcement, appointed snub that has effectively reduced her to the status of a guest in her own jewelry collection. This dramatic shift has created a palpable rift within the royal household. While Catherine has embraced her new responsibilities with characteristic, quiet diligence, the atmosphere around Camilla's team has grown increasingly toxic. The Queen Consort, once renowned for her mastery of palace politics, now finds herself routinely bypassed on matters of both state and style. Her influence over the monarchy's visual narrative has evaporated almost overnight. The strategic significance of this move cannot be overstated. The royal collection is the visual language of the British crown. By placing it under Catherine's control, King Charles is ensuring that the monarchy's public image aligns with the woman who enjoys a 78% approval rating, rather than a consort engaged in a petty war of prestige. The legal weight of Decree 102 of 2026 also extends into diplomacy. As Catherine prepares for her upcoming high-profile tour of the United States, She now possesses full authority to curate her image, using the depth and breadth of the royal vaults, without needing approval from the Queen Consort's office. This newfound independence delivers a crushing blow to Camilla's standing. For a woman who waited 20 years for her ambitions to bear fruit, the harvest is being dismantled in a matter of days. The king's decision has received quiet, but firm support from senior members of the family. Princess Anne, known for placing the institution above personal considerations, reportedly sees the move as a necessary step to stabilize the crown. Within the inner circle, there is broad consensus that Catherine's elevation to Keeper of the Royal Collection serves as vital protection against further erratic and ego-driven displays. As of mid-May 2026, the power dynamic has shifted so profoundly that courtiers now look to Kensington Palace, rather than Buckingham Palace, for direction. On the monarchy's public identity, Camilla remains queen on paper, but Catherine has become the true custodian of the crown's soul. While the transfer of the royal collection was a clinical strike against the Queen Consort's influence, King Charles III's action on May 13, 2026, delivered a social earthquake that redefined the British class structure. By signing a royal warrant granting a hereditary barony to Michael Middleton, the king did more than honor his father-in-law. He, effectively, a family of commoners, has been elevated to a status that now forms an impenetrable fortress around the Princess of Wales. In a deliberate and very public move, King Charles has endorsed the Middleton family as the new guarantors of royal stability, a decision that has left Queen Camilla increasingly isolated. The granting of a baronetcy to Michael Middleton is a historical rarity. It is the first time in more than a century that a commoner who entered the royal family through his daughter has received such a title while the reigning monarch is still alive. The official citation highlighted Michael Middleton's exceptional service to the stability of the succession. The wording carried a sharp double meaning. It openly acknowledged that the emotional and psychological well-being of the future King William and the upbringing of young Prince George are closely linked to the grounded, resilient influence of the Middleton family. For King Charles, the Middletons are no longer mere in-laws. They have become essential guardians of the Windsor dynasty's future. This elevation has triggered visible anger within Queen Camilla's circle. Camilla has long held a traditionalist view of royal hierarchy, believing her decades of aristocratic experience and eventual marriage into the monarchy set her apart from Catherine's middle-class background. She has reportedly described the Middletons as interloping commoners who have quietly staged a bloodless coup at the heart of the royal family. However, her efforts to sideline Carol and Michael Middleton have only pushed the king further away. Charles has found in the Middletons a refreshing sense of normality and steadfast loyalty that he often felt was missing in the more ruthless, aristocratic circles associated with Camilla. His warm and frequent interactions with Carol Middleton have become a particular source of tension. In the early months of 2026, the king was regularly seen engaging in friendly, private conversations, with Carol at events such as race meetings. To Charles, Carol represents a secret weapon. The steady maternal influence ensuring that George, Charlotte, and Louis are raised with a proper sense of duty, tempered by modern, healthy values. He sees her as the anchor preventing the next generation from repeating the turmoil of his own youth. To Camilla, however, Carol is a wolf in sheep's clothing, a rival matriarch gradually displacing her as the dominant female figure in the palace. The rift between the two women has moved beyond subtle glances and has become an open contest for the king's ear. Camilla's reliance on old guard courtiers and traditional networks appears to be failing her. She has struggled to match the practical value and broad public popularity of the Middleton family. The announcement of Michael Middleton's baronetcy sent a clear signal to the British establishment. The king's trust has shifted decisively. The aristocracy was left in no doubt that the Middletons are now a permanent fixture in the royal landscape, their elevated status officially sanctioned at the highest level. The decision has deepened divisions within the royal household. Princess Anne and other senior royals have reportedly voiced approval, viewing the Middletons as a much-needed injection of fresh energy and solid character. They particularly value the family's discretion, their refusal to leak information or chase the spotlight, in stark contrast to the media maneuvering often linked to Camilla's supporters. Princess Anne's backing has further isolated Camilla, leaving the Queen Consort with few allies among the blood royals. As of mid-May 2026, the social order within the palace has been permanently redrawn. Camilla's attempts to shield herself with her aristocratic credentials have proven ineffective against a king who now places the survival and stability of the crown above the sensitivities of the old guard. The Middleton baronetcy is more than a title. It is a fortification. It ensures that when Catherine eventually becomes queen, she will be supported by a family that has been formally integrated into the nobility. Camilla's dismissive remarks about Catherine as a mere magazine cover star have been answered by a king who has granted Catherine's father a hereditary title and her mother significant influence over the future of the monarchy. The Queen Consort now finds herself in a palace where her once dominant social position has been eclipsed by a new hierarchy, one in which the name Middleton carries more weight than her own 20-year struggle for acceptance. The diplomatic landscape of the British monarchy underwent a dramatic transformation in the days leading up to mid-May 2026. King Charles III made a series of decisive executive moves that effectively began to sideline and erase Queen Camilla from the international stage. Jewelry and royal titles had already eroded the Queen Consort's standing within palace circles, but it was the formal restructuring of upcoming overseas tours that confirmed her complete marginalization. Acting with a renewed sense of institutional purpose, King Charles has systematically shifted the crown's global representation away from his wife and toward the Prince and Princess of Wales. The most decisive blow came with the announcement of the upcoming state visit to the United States in July 2026. Historically, such a prestigious diplomatic mission would have required the Queen Consort's participation to lend full ceremonial presence alongside the king. Instead, in what many interpret as a direct response to Camilla's recent public missteps and her sharply declining popularity, Charles has reassigned these duties to William and Catherine. The king has effectively appointed the Waleses as the monarchy's primary international ambassadors, tasking them with repairing and strengthening the royal brand in America. This decision has stripped Camilla of meaningful diplomatic relevance and denied her the chance to counter the narrative being advanced by the Sussexes from Montecito. Her exclusion from the American tour is not due to a mere scheduling conflict. It represents a deliberate strategy of containment. Sources within the Foreign, Commonwealth, and Development Office indicate that the king is well aware of the damaging optics created by Camilla's recent behavior. Her disparaging remarks about Catherine at the recent garden party and her apparent jealousy toward the Princess of Wales have rendered her a liability on the world stage. In contrast, Catherine continues to command enormous admiration and fascination in the United States, particularly after her open and courageous battle with cancer. By positioning Catherine as the public face of the monarchy, Charles is capitalizing on her strong 78% approval rating to safeguard the institution's future, while leaving Camilla in a form of professional exile. Compounding this diplomatic isolation, Prince William has moved decisively to shield his own initiatives from any association with the Queen Consort. In a move that reverberated through royal offices, William removed Camilla's name from 3 major Earthshot prize programs scheduled to launch in the United States this summer. Long a protector of his wife's position and a driving force, Behind a more robust monarchy, William reportedly told the king that Camilla's involvement would distract from and undermine the mission's objectives. The Prince of Wales is no longer requesting space for his family. He is asserting it, and the king is increasingly aligned with his son's vision. The financial consequences for Camilla have been equally severe. In an unprecedented step, the king has substantially reduced the funds allocated from the privy purse for her personal public relations efforts and independent office expenses. For years, Camilla had supported a large team of advisors and media strategists dedicated to improving her image and public standing. By slashing this budget, Charles is dismantling the infrastructure that once allowed her to compete for public attention. This tightening of resources signals that the king no longer sees value in investing in Camilla's individual brand, choosing instead to focus on the Wales family as the cornerstone of the monarchy's collective image and institutional stability. These developments have created a heavy atmosphere of defeat within the Queen Consort's private quarters. The woman who once believed she had successfully journeyed from mistress to monarch now finds herself confined to a legal and diplomatic vacuum. Her earlier attempts to assert authority through the display of historic jewels have resulted only in those same jewels being placed under the control of her rival. Efforts to undermine Catherine through the media have backfired, leading to her own financial and professional sidelining. The king's actions go beyond resolving a family dispute. They represent a calculated strategy to ensure the monarchy's relevance in a modern world that has clearly embraced Catherine over Camilla. As of May 14, 2026, the royal diplomatic calendar for the rest of the year reflects this new order. William and Catherine are the principal faces of the British state, while Camilla has been relegated to minor domestic engagements of limited significance. The Queen Consort, who spent 2 decades working to reach the pinnacle of the institution, has now been pushed to its periphery. Through this strategic redirection, King Charles has created a monarchy in which the reigning Queen Consort is both legally and diplomatically eclipsed by her successors. The era of correction within the palace has reached its peak, leaving Camilla as a figurehead without a meaningful role, while Catherine prepares to command the world stage with the full and unequivocal support of the institution. The constitutional framework of the British monarchy underwent a significant transformation on the morning of 14th of May, 2026. King Charles III moved beyond ceremonial honors and oversight of royal collections to implement a major administrative overhaul. This latest stage of royal recalibration centered on the Privy Council, the sovereign's highest advisory body. In a decisive move that marked the definitive close of Queen Camilla's influence, the king signed a series of executive orders that substantially expanded the Princess of Wales's authority within this elite institution. Catherine was granted significant formal responsibilities, particularly in the areas of national health initiatives and early childhood development. This effectively gave her a permanent and influential seat at the table, where the most sensitive matters of state and monarchy are addressed. This promotion was not a knee-jerk response to media pressure, but a deliberate and calculated resolution to the internal palace power struggle that Camilla had begun months earlier. By elevating Catherine to a position of statutory power, the king ensured that her influence would no longer rest solely on public popularity, but would be enshrined in the constitutional record. The move also enabled Catherine to operate outside the traditional consort channels that Camilla had long sought to dominate. Although Queen Camilla remains a member of the Privy Council by virtue of her marriage, she has been left without any specific portfolio or clear mandate. In contrast, Catherine now exercises her role with the full legal authority of the King's Commission, serving as the primary link between the Crown and the government on key social policy matters. Insiders describe the fallout inside the palace as a complete eclipse of the Queen Consort's office. For years, Camilla's team had worked to establish her as the leading female voice on royal legacy issues. The king's decision to prioritize Catherine's position has rendered those efforts irrelevant. Palace staff have reportedly begun referring to the Princess of Wales as the de facto leader of the family's social and charitable mission. This shift has caused a visible breakdown in communication between the two royal households. Camilla is said to have voiced her deep disappointment directly to the king, claiming that granting such authority to a daughter-in-law violated long-standing royal protocol. The king, however, has remained resolute, citing Catherine's consistently high approval ratings and her proven ability to bear the responsibilities of the crown with far greater grace and effectiveness than his wife. The Princess Royal, Anne, has once again played a central role in facilitating this transition. Widely respected as the hardest-working member of the family and a strict guardian of royal standards, Anne has openly backed Catherine's expanded responsibilities. In a recent high-level meeting of senior royals, Anne reportedly emphasized that the monarchy's stability depends on the competence of its members, not on the success of social ambition. Her pointed remark was widely understood as criticism of Camilla's recent behavior. Anne's strong endorsement has given the king crucial family support to continue sidelining Camilla without risking a serious internal backlash. The king has also used this reshuffle to publicly recognize the Middleton family's vital contribution to the monarchy's stability, highlighting the steadfast support provided by Michael and Carol Middleton to the future heirs. In essence, Charles is reshaping the royal inner circle. Traditional aristocratic figures, many of them longtime allies of Camilla, are being gradually replaced by a new merit-based network centered on the Middletons and the Waleses. Loyalty to the long-term future of the crown now outweighs allegiance to the current consort. The psychological impact on Camilla has been significant. She now finds herself needing approval for initiatives she once managed independently. Having already lost influence over the royal collections, been sidelined from key diplomatic engagements, and now bypassed in the Privy Council, she remains queen in title alone. The woman who once dismissed Catherine for appearing on magazine covers must now watch as that same princess assumes control of core elements of the monarchy's machinery. As mid-May 2026 draws to a close, the Hohe transition is effectively complete. The king has not only chosen his successor, he has also chosen his active partner in governance. That partner is the Princess of Wales. Camilla continues to appear at the king's side in official photographs, but in the rooms where real power is exercised and the future is decided, she is notably absent. The headline, "Arise Queen Kate," was never merely a prophecy. It was the opening shot of a new royal era that has already begun in everything but name. By the evening of 14th of May 2026, the transformation of the British monarchy had passed the point of no return. What started as quiet administrative changes and subtle social exclusions has now become what constitutional experts describe as a silent abdication of influence. Though Queen Camilla still holds the formal title and continues to appear in the court circular, she has been effectively sidelined by the very institution she spent decades trying to enter. The final stage of this power shift came with the complete withdrawal of royal support for her personal brand, leaving her isolated within the vast machinery of Buckingham Palace. Meanwhile, the Princess of Wales has been elevated to a position that is, in all but title, that of a queen-in-waiting, enjoying full executive backing from the monarchy. The clearest sign of Camilla's fall from grace is the near-total isolation surrounding her private office. In a decisive move, several of her most senior and longest-serving aides have either been reassigned or have taken early retirement. The palace has made no effort to replace them. a telling indication that the king sees no long-term role for an independent consort operation. Every request for public engagements or media activity from Camilla's remaining team now undergoes strict vetting by the Prince and Princess of Wales's office at Kensington Palace. The message is unmistakable. The king has handed day to day control of the monarchy's public image to his son and daughter-in-law. Public opinion has delivered the final verdict. Following the release of record-breaking approval ratings on 10th of May, the national mood has swung decisively behind Catherine. She is no longer viewed simply as a senior royal, but as the savior of the institution itself. This wave of public support has given King Charles the political capital needed to complete Camilla's marginalization. The announcement of a baronetcy for Michael Middleton and Catherine's new role as Keeper of the Royal Collection were met with overwhelmingly positive reactions. The British public has made it clear that they prefer the quiet, modern dignity of the Middleton-Wales partnership over the perceived entitlement and personal rivalries associated with the Queen consort. Princess Anne, widely regarded as the ultimate arbiter within the family, has thrown her weight firmly behind the new order. Her reported assessment, delivered at a private Windsor dinner, was that the monarchy had finally removed its most toxic source of instability. Her strong endorsement of the Middleton family's elevation has provided crucial validation from the blood royals. The family has moved on with remarkable speed, leaving Camilla stunned. She now finds herself tolerated for ceremonial purposes only, her influence in matters of substance gone. The mockery she once directed at Catherine has become her own legacy. After waiting nearly 20 years for a crown, she has lost the real power it carries in less than 3 weeks. King Charles's health and historical legacy are now closely tied to the success of William and Catherine. He appears to have recognized that his reign will ultimately be judged by how effectively he prepared the ground for the next generation. By empowering Catherine and integrating her family, he is securing a smoother transition and a more stable future. As of mid-May 2026, the royal family is leaner, more focused, and more popular than it has been in decades. This revival has been achieved through the deliberate and systematic removal of Camilla's influence. Though she still walks the halls of Buckingham Palace, the Queen Consort has already been consigned to the history books. The Arise Queen Kate headline was not just a tribute. It was the death knell for one woman's ambitions. The era of Catherine has begun, and the era of Camilla has ended in the shadow of her own making. The throne may remain in Buckingham Palace, but the heart and power of the British monarchy have firmly shifted to Kensington.